He stands silently near the edge of the SEAL training grounds in Norfolk, Virginia. Just an old man in a worn flannel shirt, scuffed boots, and a faded baseball cap so weathered you can't read the embroidery. He says nothing. He moves not a muscle. He simply watches the recruits crawl through mud walls, screaming under brutal pressure. Most assume he's nobody, a retired gate guard or a local who wandered too close. No one spares him more than a passing glance, until one recruit, Ryan Harper, lags behind. He notices something beneath the old man's rolled-up sleeve, a faded tattoo, unadorned. Just a sharp trident, the kind of mark you don't choose, but earn. In that moment, Harper stops, for this old man is neither lost nor drifting. He is one of them, from long before any of them were born. Welcome to Veteran Best Stories. Get ready for a tale that will leave you speechless. Take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly connect with what I'm sharing here. And drop a comment below to tell me where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always exciting to see someone joining us from every corner of the globe. He arrives every Tuesday, always alone, always quietly, even before the sun manages to ignite the Chesapeake Bay with light. No one calls him, no one invites him, yet there he is that morning. His rusty Ford pickup grinds to a halt on the gravel lot just outside the SEAL training fence. The engine lets out a single groan, then dies as if it, too, is weary of time. He steps out, his gait uneven, each footfall weighted as though burdened by memories no one dares to touch. His baseball cap is pulled low, his flannel shirt is baggy and worn, sleeves rolled to the elbows, no insignia, no rank, not a trace of his past revealed. He walks straight to the far edge of the training grounds, where a rickety fence marks the thin line between past and present. He never crosses it, never interrupts the trainer's shouts, never speaks to anyone. He simply stands there, arms crossed, one boot tilted inward, as if it broke long ago and no one bothered to fix it. From a distance, he might pass for an idle local, or an old man with too much time, watching young men torture themselves. But look closer. There's something off in the way he watches. His eyes narrow every time a recruit drops his rifle while crawling through mud. His shoulders stiffen when someone steps out of formation. Not anger, but memory. His body remembers too well how one small slip can spell disaster, remembers how one misstep can cost a life. He doesn't watch as a spectator, not merely as an onlooker. The younger recruits barely notice him. To them, he's just part of the scenery, like the salty breeze off the bay or the abandoned shipping container by the fence. A few older ones, if they notice at all, quietly whisper he's here to reclaim some old memory, or perhaps atone for a debt only he understands. The trainers themselves don't know his name. Strangely, nobody asks, and nobody tells him to leave. In places like this, respect isn't spoken. It's earned in silence. And whoever he once was, whatever he did, he's earned the right to stand there without explanation. He wears nothing to reveal his identity, no insignia, no medals, no veteran's badge like career officers do. Only that faded cap, that wool shirt with sleeves rolled to the elbows, and eyes that never stray from the course. Sometimes, when the wind picks up, or when his muscles tense, the faded ink on his left forearm becomes visible. Many assume it's just aged skin. Until one day, a young recruit resting by the fence happens to glance closer and freezes. Not wrinkles, but a tattoo, faded, deep and weathered, a trident. Not the flashy emblem stitched for PR campaigns, not the souvenir you buy at military gift shops. but the original design, bestowed back when there were no documentaries, no slogans, no social media. A symbol meaningful only to those who earned it in sweat, in blood, by sacrificing far more than an oath to wear it. And in that moment, when the young soldier realizes what he's seeing, he says nothing. He simply stands still. Because some badges need no introduction. They live in silence, like the man who stands there, guarding memories, for those who've never known true loss. Ryan Harper has just turned 20. The youngest recruit in the unit, he doesn't possess the most impressive build, nor the greatest raw strength. But he has something few others do, an innate stubbornness fused with a razor-sharp eye for detail. That half-rebellious, half-resolute streak is what's carried him through every brutal drill, from grueling, knee-buckling runs to hours spent crawling through mud, shoulders aching under thick timber. He doesn't fall. He doesn't complain. He simply endures, and he pays attention. And it is that very attention that makes Harper the first to notice the strange old man, the one who always stands alone outside the fence, where Chesapeake Bay breezes sweep by, carrying salt and mist. He never speaks. He never steps inside the training area. He carries nothing but a battered baseball cap and eyes fixed on the course. At first, Harper barely spares him a glance. Just another face in the chaos. But then, the repetition begins to pierce his curiosity, week after week, same spot, same unwavering gaze. Amid the roar of sweat and screams and the ragged groans of his teammates, Donovan's silence stands out starkly. He resembles a monolithic rock in a raging river, unmoved, unwavering, simply standing, as if his presence alone reminds you of something greater. Harper starts to study how he watches. Those eyes do not look generally. They analyze. They judge. They assess every motion, from an incorrect seating posture to a misaligned stride. Harper feels as if the old man isn't merely observing, but recording, his mind replaying something familiar his body once performed years ago. Donovan cannot be a casual passerby. No one happens to watch a recruit's lifted foot with pursed lips like that. No one stands utterly motionless for hours under a scorching sun unless they once stood like that for reasons far deeper than curiosity. And Harper senses it. One blazing summer afternoon, as the endless sand run drills grind the men to exhaustion and grit rubs into every pore, Harper's gaze drifts again to Donovan. Breath ragged, sweat and sand caking his face, heart hammering, a stray bay breeze offering fragile respite. Then, in that very moment, a stronger gust flips up Donovan's shirt just enough to bare his left forearm. Harper pants, hands on knees, yet his eyes never leave that spot. A tattoo, not crisp, not bold, but a faded patch of ink fused into flesh, as though it's been there so long it became part of him. Yet Harper sees it clearly. A trident, simple, sharp, and weighty. No flourish, no decoration, no words around it. Just a solitary, ritualistic emblem. He knows immediately it's not the kind of tattoo some impulsive kid inks after a night of beers. It isn't worn to show off, nor bought with money. It's a silent whisper of blood, of sweat, of something earned only by surpassing human limits. Harper asks no one. He tells no one. But from that day forward, something inside him shifts. His view of Donovan is no longer mere curiosity. It becomes a profound urge to understand, to know, to touch that buried memory behind those eyes. Not out of simple admiration, but because in that fleeting moment, Between ragged breaths and the scorching heat of the sand, Harper felt something unmistakably real, that the old man was once a part of this place, in a way few ever enter, and even fewer leave. That night, the barracks were cloaked in darkness and the hush of exhausted bodies. The steady breathing of teammates blended with the soft whistle of wind slipping through the window cracks, forming a monotonous lullaby for sleep. But Ryan Harper could not sleep. His body ached as if every muscle fiber were protesting. Sand still clung dry to his elbows, and his palms burned after the day's relentless training. Yet what kept him awake was not the physical pain, but the image of that faded trident tattoo revealed by the afternoon breeze. That image was etched into his mind. The harder he tried to push it away, the more vividly it returned. Simple, sharp, not a trendy ink or personal declaration, but a mark of something greater and more dangerous than anything Harper had ever known. And his intuition whispered, "It is not merely memory. It is an untold truth." Unable to resist that impulse, Harper quietly slipped from his bunk, crept down the dim corridor, and entered the old recreation room. The space was small, with only a table, a few rickety metal chairs, and a desktop computer so antiquated its cooling fans screeched each time it powered on. He sat down and began to type slowly, his hands still coated in dry sand and sweat. He didn't know where to start. No full name, no rank, no birth year. Only two clues, a trident tattoo and the name Donovan, which he had picked up in passing from older soldiers. Harper began to sift through obscure military forums, dusty SEAL archives the average person would never notice. Most searches led to deleted posts, broken links, or files locked for security reasons. At times, he nearly gave up, but then pressed on, as if some instinct was pulling him deeper into the maze of one man's forgotten legacy, quietly revered by the entire unit yet untouchable. Then, amid a cobweb-strewn record in a long-abandoned base archive, he found a single line. J. Donovan retired, authorized observer, no instruction. No photo, no dossier, no contact details, just that oddly terse notation. Permitted to observe in silence, no participation. Authorization renewed annually, no expiration, no explanation. Harper paused, his eyes fixed on the screen. His heart skipped a beat. A man no longer in uniform, yet granted the right to be at the training grounds, year after year, no reasons required, no reports filed. A privilege reserved only for those who once stood where no one else dared. He delved deeper. After hours of searching, he stumbled on an aged 1997 training memorandum stating, "Tactical Advisor, SO1 Donovan, participated in Special Operations Protocol Consultation." A marginal note added, "Recognized as foundational operator of the initial SEAL teams." Harper swallowed hard. SO1, Special Operator First Class, not an insignificant rank, and the phrase foundational operator sent chills down his spine. It meant Donovan was not merely a soldier, he was a cornerstone, one of the first building blocks of the modern SEAL teams. Then he uncovered another document, buried in an aborted SEAL history project, an oral history intended to preserve veterans' memories, but shelved for being unverified. It contained only one reference to Donovan. SEAL Team 3, 1968, Cambodia. Deep infiltration. No after-action report submitted. Classified outcome. Field Commander, Donovan. Harper sat motionless, eyes glued to the faintly glowing screen in the darkness. Cambodia, 1968. A component of the secret war. Unrecorded. Unacknowledged. Missions where failure meant erasure. Participants returned bearing only silence. In that moment, Harper had no doubt. Donovan had walked through hell, and he returned, not with glory, not with accolades, but with a faded tattoo and the quiet privilege to stand at the fence, where others were still learning to face fire, while he had already survived the ashes. Harper leaned back in his chair. He no longer felt fatigue, only a silent reverence, for a man the military honored in silence, not with medals, but by granting him permission to observe, without anyone daring to ask why. Dear viewers, take a moment to relax or grab a drink, then stay tuned for more unexpected twists. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always exciting to see someone joining us from around the world. Comment 1. If you found this story compelling, so we can continue bringing you more remarkable true tales. Weeks passed. The Chesapeake Bay breezes still blew every Tuesday morning, carrying that familiar salt. Yet the atmosphere at the training grounds was different, heavier, tenser, as if something was steadily accumulating beneath the layers of dust, sweat, and the recruits' screams. Donovan's presence, though as silent as ever, began to leave a clearer imprint on the place's rhythm. The recruits, even though none knew who he was, kept their eyes on that familiar figure whenever they crawled through mud, scaled walls, or carried timber. The man stood behind the fence, arms crossed, never once taking his gaze off the course. But it wasn't only them. The trainers, battle-hardened warriors with decades of experience and medals crowding their chests, started to feel something too. A slow burning sensation, like an echo from a time that never truly ended. That Tuesday afternoon, the sunlight softened, drooping like a fine layer of dust over the sandy field. A long training session had just concluded. Sweat still dripped from the young soldiers' backs, their footsteps dragged with exhaustion. No one spoke much, only the wind's whisper, ragged breathing, and the shuffling of fatigued boots on hard ground. Sergeant Major Bennett, a figure regarded as the training ground's pillar, eyes as sharp as blades, a voice that straightened recruits in an instant, suddenly paused. Without a word, he turned, locking his gaze onto Donovan, standing motionless at the fence in his usual spot. The old man remained silent, arms crossed, cap pulled low as always, concealing most of his face, but unable to hide the commanding presence that emanated from his posture. Bennett took no step forward. He called no name. He issued no command. He simply stood there, upright, hands at his sides, not stiff, but solemn in a way that felt almost sacred. That moment, silent, wordless, seemed to freeze the entire space. Another trainer, Staff Sergeant Walsh, following Bennett's gaze, also halted. Then another, and another. Unplanned, they stepped forward together. Gradually, before the dozens of recruits slumped in rest, a line of silent trainers formed. Men in silver-gray uniforms, standing erect and still, facing Donovan across the dusty yard and the barbed wire fence. No one spoke. No salutes were given, no applause, no overt gestures. But the way they stood, eyes unwavering, back straight, shoulders squared, conveyed a pure respect that needed no explanation and could not be denied. The recruits, though inexperienced, exhausted, and unaware of what was unfolding, felt something undeniably real in the air. A subtle shift, sharp as a blade's edge, as if the entire training ground held its breath. No signal was given. No one stepped forward with an explanation. Yet the eyes of those battlefield veterans, men who had seen comrades fall, who had spilled their own blood under fire, spoke volumes. They understood. They acknowledged. Donovan remained unchanged. He did not flinch. He did not react. He did not nod. He continued to stand as he had since the session began, his eyes, as always, fixed on the horizon painted red, where sea and sky merged indistinctly. But to those standing there, with Bennett, with Walsh, with survivors who knew what was real and what lay deeper than any rank, his silence was the answer. No name was needed, no introduction, no retelling. Simply by being there, by gazing steadily, by bearing memories etched into those eyes, they knew. This was not a curious old man. This was someone who had already walked where they were about to tread. Someone who had survived in the crucible where discipline, loyalty, and silence were worth as much as blood. Donovan did not need to speak, and perhaps he never would. But for those who carried true scars in their hearts, his presence was an undeniable reminder. Some people need no title to earn respect. They only need to stand there, and everyone will know. Donovan continued to arrive unfailingly every Tuesday morning. No promises, no explanations, and never a change in that weathered, solitary silence of his, as if he were part of the place itself, a quiet rhythm woven into the wind's whisper, the Chesapeake Bay's mournful howl, and the heavy thud of military boots striking the earth. And then, on one Tuesday morning, he did not come. No announcement, no farewell, just the empty space where he always stood by the fence, a silence that roiled beneath it. The training grounds seemed quieter that day. No one spoke, yet everyone sensed that something had shifted. Ryan Harper, now nearing the end of his training, felt that absence more keenly than anyone. He didn't just see the void, he felt it, like someone who has lost the familiar shadow trailing their back. He watched the fence as he always did, but all he saw were swaying grass and mute strands of barbed wire in the breeze. But Harper knew. Donovan had been here. And Harper also knew he was gone, because Harper was the last to see him. The previous Tuesday afternoon, after the recruits trudged back to the barracks, Harper lingered, his eyes silently trailing Donovan from a distance. He had stood beside that rusty pickup, pouring the last drops of coffee from a dented thermos. The lid snapped shut with a hollow click. The late sun filtered through the trees, painting the old man's solemn face in a surreal light, time itself seeming to pause and salute him one final time. Donovan did not look back. He did not wave. He simply climbed into the truck, slowly, and drove away. The tires grated over the gravel, a harsh rasp that faded around the bend. As Harper turned to leave, he noticed a small object neatly wedged into the leaning fence post where Donovan always stood. A thin, ivory-colored envelope bearing a single confident scrawl, Harper. He opened it. Inside lay an old, worn coin, one side engraved with a trident, simple, sturdy, nothing like a flashy modern emblem. The other side bore but one meticulously carved phrase: "Hold the line." No signature, no message, no date. Harper stood there for a long moment, fingers clenched around the coin. He did not fully understand its meaning. but his heart trembled with something strange, an unspoken task greater than any order, invisible, yet sacred. That night, he could not sleep, nor could he let the feeling drift away like a breeze. Harper quietly roused two closest friends, those who had crawled beside him through mud, ice-cold water, and fear. Under a pale moon, the three of them returned to the fence in silence. Harper undid his pack and, without a word, retrieved a small bronze plaque he had painstakingly engraved by hand that very evening. He concealed it within his pack's canvas folds. They found the exact spot where Donovan had stood, by the fence post with its jagged rust. And there, in the shadowed stillness, they used small nails and a hammer to gently affix the plaque to the inside of the fence, away from prying eyes. Upon the plaque, a single line was inscribed, "For those who stand in silence until they speak." No name, no date, not for acclaim, not for credit, just a word of thanks, a mark, proof that someone once stood here, watched over them, and gave everything, asking nothing in return. Donovan never returned. No further messages appeared. No one on the training grounds spoke of him again. Yet the plaque remained, bedusted, weathered by rain, chilled each winter. But it endured, like he did, a silent testament to a man who entered their lives without words and left something beyond naming, yet never to be forgotten. Weeks had passed. The sand runs, the ice-cold water drills, the long, achy nights, all lay behind him. And on that fateful morning, Ryan Harper stood alone before the threshold of receiving his first Trident coin. His hand gripped the old bronze disc. One side bore the Trident engraving, the other side bore the inscription, "Hold the line." The dawn's first light had just swept over the bay, bathing the training grounds in a pale golden glow. And at the edge of that weathered fence, where a silent man had stood through countless mornings, the small bronze plaque remained. Its metal was dulled with age, its edges pitted with rust, yet the lettering was sharper than ever. For those who stand in silence until they speak. Harper did not know where Donovan was, alive or gone. No one spoke of him officially, no obituary, no farewell message. Yet Harper still felt Donovan's presence, as though a part of him lived on in every Harper movement, in the way Harper adjusted his posture before each drill, in the way he watched his teammates in silence, learning to read them by eye rather than by orders, and most of all, in the way he kept that coin in his pocket, not as a talisman, but as a reminder that respect needs no loud declaration. The training grounds carried on, shouts of command, the thud of boots on the earth, the trainers' voices still echoed as before. But for Harper, something had shifted, gently, profoundly, irreversibly. Now, amid the trainers' hushed whispers, the name Donovan began to circulate, not through long tales or dazzling record boards, but through brief, decisive glances loaded with meaning. And one day, a retired captain confirmed what everyone had only dared to guess. James Donovan of SEAL Team 3, a ghost emerging from missions never documented, a man who had saved lives the world would never know about. Donovan chose no memoirs. He left no medals on display. He chose silence, not from weakness, but from discipline. For he understood that if he stood too close, the light would fall on him instead of on those who needed it most. And Harper realized, some heroes leave no legacy of fame. They leave it by teaching others to stand taller, to stand firmer, He turned his back on the fence and headed for the barracks. The coin felt heavier in his hand, yet his heart felt lighter. For now he knew he would carry that lesson forward, not in words, but in deeds. Now, we want to hear from you. Have you ever met someone whose silence spoke louder than words? Share their name and story in the comments. Let's honor them together. And if this story resonated with you, thank you for accompanying us. Don't forget to tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. It's always thrilling to see people join us from every corner of the globe. Comment 1 if you found this story moving, so we can continue bringing you more incredible human stories.